The Leviathan Chronicles. An audio adventure. The story thus far.
After posting leaked information about the Black Door Group on their conspiracy podcast, Jonah and Joshua, the hosts of Trutheaterradio, barely escape with their lives being ambushed by Black Door assassins. The two men are soon contacted by Evangeline Leifrick, who offers them protection from the Black Door Group, and presents the two men with the opportunity to work for Leviathan's Eden Initiative as immortals. The brothers are given precise rendezvous coordinates 240 miles southwest of Guam, near the Mariana Islands in the Philippine Sea, and are instructed to reach the location as discreetly as possible. Much to their shock, $1.5 million was deposited in their bank account, to assist them. Jonah and Joshua decide to purchase a slightly used DeFore 56 long-range sailing yacht in Ensenada, Mexico and set sail for the destination. And now, Chapter 0.3, A Meeting with an Immortal.
Come to! Go ahead and drop the sail! This is the middle of nowhere. Are you sure these are the coordinates that Evangeline gave you?
She directly uploaded them to my cloud server. I've checked and triple-checked.
Well, maybe we need to check to see if the GPS is working.
All of the equipment is almost brand new. It came with the boat.
Yeah, I didn't think that was actually the problem.
Well, I suppose we could eat something. I'm starving. I still got those 2 ribeyes.
I can't think about food right now. All I can think about is Becca and the kids and if they're safe.
Look, they're safe with the Kumbao Potters in Mumbai. Everything's gonna be just fine. Don't worry about it.
And yet here we are, sailing across the Pacific Ocean, running away from the Black Door Group, expecting God knows what, and the only thing that truly matters to me is them. God, I miss them.
Listen, would it make you feel better if I told you that you really didn't have a decision?
I know you're right, but it doesn't mean I'm not second-guessing this whole business.
What if nobody shows... What? How are you getting a signal out here?
I have no idea. Hello?
Please stand clear for nautical submersion elevator.
Nautical submersion elevator?
Ask him how the phone works.
Hello? They just hung up. They said stand clear for...
Nautical submersion elevator.
After you.
The two men cautiously entered the craft. The interior felt less like a submarine, and more like a private luxury airliner. The high-back leather-upholstered chairs looked stitched by the finest craftsmen of a bygone era, and faced a massive observation window to the underwater view outside.
This is incredible.
This is not what I was expecting.
Welcome, gentlemen. Please have a seat. You are free to move around the cabin if you like. A full cocktail bar is available to the starboard side of the craft. Other food and refreshments are on the port side. Crawfish etouffee has also been provided by special request from Senshin. Enjoy the ride, and welcome to Leviathan.
Crawfish etouffee? Oh, hell yeah.
I remember mentioning to Evangeline we were from New Orleans, but who is Senshin?
Don't you remember? He's that tall guy that goes by Christof on the surface. He's the one we're supposed to be meeting with. You paid for your cab ride to Newark Airport?
Oh, right, Christof. How's the etouffee?
Aunt Karen isn't going to like this.
Why?
Imagine Aunt Karen's etouffee.
Yeah, it's the best.
Now add about 100 years to make it even better than that.
Oh, come on. I gotta try this. Holy shit, I was not prepared for that.
Going down. The question is, how far?
Our current location right now is right above the Mariana Trench, which is just over 6,000 fathoms.
Thanks a lot, Jacques Cousteau. How much is that in feet for us plebes?
It's over 36,000 feet.
What? That's like 7 miles. Surely we aren't going that far.
Well, after the last couple of weeks, nothing would surprise me.
Good morning. This is the Leviathan Orientation audio program. This program has been designed to help new immortals know what to expect in their first few days upon arriving to Leviathan City. My name is Senshin, and I'm one of the lieutenants of Leviathan and the chief social officer in charge of making your transition from surface life to life within Leviathan as smooth and enjoyable as possible. But first, congratulations on being selected by Evangeline to join a very select community. You're very lucky, and we in turn here in Leviathan are very lucky to be having you join us. You were chosen due to your unique skill set, whether you're a soldier, barber, priest, architect, painter, scholar, or cobbler. You will no doubt contribute greatly to the fabric of our lives, hidden as they may be. More importantly, you will now have the opportunity to make a distinct difference in the course of humanity. Not just one life, not hundreds, but millions. This is the true nature of the Eden Initiative, and your role within it will be explained shortly. So thank you. Thank you for making the sacrifices that led you to board this ship and descend into the ocean and into the unknown. Thank you for joining us in Leviathan and becoming part of our community. Your life is about to change in ways you couldn't imagine.
Ugh, it couldn't possibly be much further. Feels like we've been descending for ages.
The anticipation is killing me. At least we have good food and... Oh my god, look at that!
I cannot believe what I am looking at.
Outside the observation window, the darkness began to be filled with glowing light, revealing a massive structure that looked like a cross between an Aztec ziggurat and a Catholic cathedral.
How did they do this?
The ornamentation, the detail. I haven't the slightest idea how they built this. Well, I guess we have an eternity to find out.
Looks like we've arrived.
The back of the vessel suddenly opened up to a long corridor airlock, which impossibly was encased with 180-degree viewing windows that resembled a city aquarium. As the two men began to walk, they saw various aquatic life, never before observed by anyone on the surface. Several different models of pressurized mechanical suits were being used by men and women, who were making repairs or upgrades to the outside of the structure.
Good afternoon. Please make your way to the end of the corridor. This will lead you to the heart of the city. First-time arrivals to Leviathan City will oftentimes find themselves detached from reality. We can assure you this is quite normal, as the city will far exceed any expectations you have, and be vastly different from any place experienced on the surface. Please feel free to explore the many sights and amenities the city has to offer. Come partake in the finest cuisine from around the world at the Taste of Immortality, prepared by Master Chef Marie-Antoine Carême, who served dishes for Tsar Alexander I, the Prince Regent, Lord Stuart, and Princess Bagration, among others during the early 19th century. Relax by the fire with the Armagnac brandy while sampling some of the finest cigars and pipe tobacco at the Elysian Fields Tobacconist and Lounge. Or take a stroll through Leviathan City's botanical gardens while marveling at the Lumiflora sky that is painted daily by our very own Stefano Vividucci. Whichever you choose, it is sure to not disappoint. Welcome to your new home, and welcome to Leviathan.
I am going to all of those.
Well, there's plenty of time for all that, but first we gotta meet Christof. What's the name of that place he said?
Some place he called the Salty Squid.
Now that sounds like my kind of place. Just rough enough around the edges so I don't feel like I'm gonna break anything.
You ready for this?
I was born not ready for this.
My sweet Jeebus.
I'm feeling really detached from reality.
Bridges led back and forth across the great cavern, and numerous ramps and elevators whisked people up and down the countless levels. Many people wore jumpsuits of differing colors, but many others wore clothing of various ages and nationalities. A woman in a tight ivory kimono walking across the cobblestone street to meet a tall man dressed in a frock coat, top hat, and bow tie. The man was manipulating a small floating disc that hovered just over his head. Using a small device in his hand, he lowered the disc to eye level and then watched a small hologram arise from the top of the disc. The figurine that materialized on the disc waved at the geisha, and she politely waved back as the man in the top hat smiled. Others on the crowded street went about their business, as if there was nothing at all unusual about the fact that they were all living and working more than 35,000 feet underwater. The most amazing part of all was the sky. There could be no sky here, not inside of a cavern buried beneath the single deepest point on Earth that was also geometrically the furthest away from any sky. Yet there it was. A warm, dull glow emanated from the top of the cavern, which released a golden, iridescent haze that gently fell down from the ceiling.
Absolutely breathtaking.
I have so many questions, I don't even know where to start.
Let's start with where the salty squid is. Excuse me, excuse me! Excuse me.
You gentlemen must be new here.
Very new. I'm Jonah, and this is my brother Joshua.
Nice to meet you. My name's Elizabeth. I'm the chief medical officer here in Leviathan.
Oh, that's cool.
Got installed as a nurse for the Confederacy during the Civil War.
The American Civil War?
Now, I know everyone, particularly Americans, look at me sideways when I say that, but the world has changed a lot since then. Besides, it didn't matter. I was there to save lives, not assist in wars. But I go on. What can I do for our new arrivals?
We're looking for a place called the Salty Squid. We have a meeting with Christof. Do you know him?
Christof? Oh, you mean Sunshine? We don't hear him called that much down here in Leviathan.
Senshin. Yeah, that's right. That's what I meant.
The Salty Squid is just down that road. Take a right, and about 3 blocks down, take a left down a cobblestone alleyway. You will go down 2 staircases that are in desperate need of repair. After that, y'all can't miss it.
Thank you very much. I hope in time we can return the favor.
Time is one thing we have in abundance. I wish y'all well. Oh, and try the squid chips at your own risk.
That sounded like a challenge.
The challenge is going to be trying to remember those directions.
Okay, let's go.
After following Elizabeth's instruction, the 2 men arrived and stumbled upon a small wooden door that resided with a blinking neon sign depicting a giant squid fighting a sperm whale. The sign read, "The Salty Squid," and owing to the fact that 2 of the squid's neon tentacles were faded, Joshua thought the whale might be the one winning. A thick mahogany bar ran around half the length of the pub, with brass hooks situated underneath. An assortment of faded leather barber chairs were situated towards the rear of the bar, with a spittoon on one side and cigar ashtrays on the other. Jonah and Joshua saw that the ceiling was completely covered with artifacts hanging by little hooks. A katana sword from the Muromachi period hung next to a Bugatti steering wheel from the 1929 Grand Prix. Further along the ceiling he spotted a red electric guitar signed by Keith Richards next to several ornate German beer steins with heavy pewter lids.
We're not open yet!
Oh, sorry. We're supposed to meet someone here.
You know what this place reminds me of? Lafitte's.
Where's that?
You know, Lafitte's blacksmith shop over on Bourbon Street.
Oh, gotcha.
What are you talking about?
It's the oldest bar in New Orleans.
Why, on all my stars. I'll be damned. For a few centuries now, people come into my bar and want to hang their trophies on the ceiling. Yes, it makes them feel even more immortal. This calls for a drink. What can I get you, sailor?
What do you have on tap?
We literally have everything, Milan. Mead, ambrosia, armagnac, wine, beer, champagne, bourbon, coca, tea, sake, soju, and scotch from every decade since 1630. Not to mention my own personal blend of Vinocia.
I've always been curious what mead tastes like.
Does this look like we're in a Renaissance festival? Who still drinks mead?
Not too many. One chap named Byron has a real fondness for it.
The two brothers looked at each other, shocked at what they just heard.
He's not talking about that Byron, is he?
Mean that weird pale man with the pretentious British accent? No way.
He stops in from time to time, but haven't seen much of him lately.
Would you happen to have any Lagavulin 37?
That's one we don't get very often. Just give me a moment. I think I might have something. Ah, there she is. Coming right up. Let's see if I have any. So tell me, what brings you down here?
Well, like I said, we came here to meet somebody.
No, you dumb hungus. Here in Leviathan.
Who wouldn't want to come here? The surface sucks, and you know it.
Well, if you're asking why we were chosen by Evangeline, I don't know, maybe she just wanted some storytellers.
Of course you are.
Hey, do you have a food menu? Do you have anything here to snack on?
Pub grub? I'll heat up some bangers and mash. In the meantime, you can nibble on these if you want.
What are these?
Squid chips.
Challenge accepted.
I'm good.
Oh, for the love of Jiminy Cricket. You're not going to insult the barkeep who's opening his tavern early for the likes of you and throwing free liquor down your sorry gullet and not try one of the house specialties, are you?
I guess I could try some.
Now there's a brave soul.
Oh man, these things bring the heat.
Oh, jeez, Becca would die.
Ah, the burn comes from a relish I make with Dorset Naga peppers. Very hard things to come by.
Can I get a fire extinguisher to drink? This is a touch below pleasant spicy.
Coming right up, sailor. This here's a nice pilsner from a small brew house outside of Budapest I like.
If these squid chips are helping you sell more beer, I'd say you have a killer business model, my friend.
What exactly do you mean by business?
Well, more customers buy more drinks and you make more money. Not to put too fine a point on it. Why not relocate to get more foot traffic? Seems like you're missing out on a lot of customers.
I'm paying for drinks? You're still thinking like a mortal. Customer implies some sort of payment. We don't use money here in Leviathan. Oh, I've got tens of millions sitting in some Cayman bank account, but that's all back up on the surface. Money doesn't matter in Leviathan. We don't have any need for it down here. Only knowledge. And a good sense of humour. But to answer your question, 400 years ago, the salty squid used to be right on the main thoroughfare of Leviathan, right over on Tweedle Avenue.
So you had to relocate? Or did you have to move the whole building?
They moved the street. Now Tweedle runs north and south over on the left. 4 more new streets got built that are twice as wide. City's always changing. Always growing, too. Some say Evangeline is bringing too many people into Leviathan, but people are starting to lose the spirit of why we're here.
Well, Evangeline brought us here, but why we are here is to remain evident.
Some say she's bringing more people down here for a reason. Not just the toughies for security, but God knows we need them with everything that's going on. No, but others as well.
I'd imagine there's always a reason. Hell, we barely know the reason we've been brought here.
Maybe more people are arriving because Evangeline is starting to recognize the value of the average Joe, so to speak. It would certainly help with assisting in checks and balances.
Oh, I suppose it doesn't matter. Evangeline is good enough to all of us. She can do as she likes. Long as I got beer in the cask and scotch in the barrel, things will be fine.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah, we started this podcast knowing that censorship was pretty much protocol across the board.
Oh, boy.
On top of that, most of the people we know think we are crazy. For a while, I thought I was.
Don't think Evangeline hasn't had her share of problems.
And we are being pursued by Black Door because of some information we may have leaked about them to the whole world.
Boy, you got yourself a problem. What else is wrong with your sorry ass?
We're now immortals, but also broke and in debt. I'm actually thinking of just sitting for the next 100 years and trying to think of the next chia pet to get rich.
And I don't think the U.S. government is going to pay my veterans benefits for the next 1,000 years.
A money problem? That's the smallest problem someone can have in life. Just tell Evangeline you need to lay low for a while. Stay down here 40 or 50 years. You'll be amazed how all that stuff just goes away. The people you owe money to just forget or die themselves. Debts get consolidated, then written off. The money that you do have just sits in an account and grows exponentially. Then you go back up to the surface in a few decades and everything is fine.
I hadn't thought of that.
But I still have a wife and kids I plan on being with. I won't just leave them.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. It's hard to remember what it was like being mortal, but I seem to recall that when I was, I spent an awful lot of time worrying about money, how to get it, how to save it, how to spend it. It all just seems pretty pointless now living here in Leviathan. But I think back then, it took up an awful lot of my time. I'm sorry, mate. I don't mean to be insensitive.
I mean, it's all good, no harm done. It's actually a major reason I accepted immortality was to be there for him.
At least half the damn fools down here become immortal because of love. These things have a way of working out.
For the next few hours, Angus brought me a heaping plate of bangers and mash, as well as a very respectable plate of fish and chips. He also poured several more pints of Pilsner and lager that were cheerfully finished. Soon, several hours had passed filled with tales of laughter and love, boasts and lies, victories and defeats, and most of all, good humor.
Turns to her and says, "If you think that's bad, you should..." Can I get you another?
Nah, I think we're good. We still have our meeting.
You planning on staying long around these parts?
No, not terribly long, till this Black Door business cools down.
Well, if you change your mind, there's always a bar stool here waiting for you.
Thanks, Angus. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you for your hospitality.
Just then a man standing at least 6'4", with salt and pepper hair wearing a turtleneck sweater entered the pub. It was Senshin, but the two men knew him best as Christof Laputka. This was their meeting with an immortal.
This is, welcome everybody, this is Trutheaterradio.
Yeah,
I'm Joshua.
I'm
I'm already introducing you as Joshua, and I'm saying I'm Joshua. I'm Jonah.
My name is Joshua.
And I'm already tongue-tied because of the guest we have, Christof Laputka.
Super pumped!
I am so excited to be here. This is great. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for this incredible feast of dumplings and wine that we are enjoying together. This is how I like to have an interview. I mean, I'm so excited to hang out and be on your show.
Yeah,
with you
guys. we just keep it pretty much just lighthearted, going with the flow. Nothing really, hammered down, official or anything like that. But we already know, and Josh already knows, that, no offense, nobody who is going to be listening to our show probably knows who you are.
And we're taking offense to that. They should. That what we're trying to do is they should.
They should know who you are, and they're going to know who you are. And it's almost irritating that they'd even be listening to us before knowing what you are, because you are a key instrument in inspiring us to even kind of do what we're doing in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Because it was like,
hands down.
Some of the people who've listened to us, we don't even have a lot of episodes, but some of the people who saw what we were doing off the bat and loved the idea, they said, this is a great idea, and we let them know our story right off the bat, and we said, we've been listening to audio drama since we were
children,
grade school
kids,
grade school kids, and we were listening to old shows like The Shadow.
We were the weird kids that didn't even care for TV that much. We would actually listen to audio drama.
We listened to
radio
it for
drama
years
all
and years
time.
and years.
Old time radio drama.
And
we're down.
And I don't mean to. We're mostly like sharing it with you, but we kind of go through this in our first episode. But it was.
We actually mentioned Leviathan on our first episode. We mentioned Leviathan our first episode. It was like, you want to listen to something good? Leviathan Chronicles.
Yeah, and people have even asked us before. It's like you almost don't even need to listen to anything else. listen to Leviathan Chronicles, then we'll tell you about other stuff. But for years, we were listening to the same episodes that we had recorded over and over. I mean, I can memorize. I have them memorized. I just listen to them over.
Because there were so few, right?
There were so few of them, and we described there was a set that came out on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was their Sci-Fi Channel's website, and I don't even know how I found it.
I'll never forget you introducing me
I
to
said,
that.
"There's
It
this
was
thing.
so
They're
good.
new. They're not old. They're like new audio dramas." And it was like Senior Theater, and I literally, there was no way to download them. I literally took a phone jack and recorded them.
Wow. Bootstrapping
back in the day.
Recorded
Like,
all of them. So they're like crappy, recordings, but I had all of them. I listened to them over and over and over again. And for years, when the internet actually started having search engines, I started typing in modern audio drama, modern radio drama, quote unquote radio drama.
Right, the terms weren't even in place
Yeah,
yet.
the terms weren't in place. So when you look up radio, they automatically say it's something that aired on the radio. So you get all these old time radio shows and be like, okay, here's some old radio show. And I'm like, I have all those already. I don't need those. I'm looking for something new. And then he sent me Darker Projects.
I found a website called darkerprojects.com.
Which is what Eric Busby was on with Byron.
And they were doing Section 31.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were doing Byron Chronicles. They had a couple really great titles that some incredibly passionate guys.
That was a different one. But
I think they do some Doctor Who.
They did
also.
some Doctor Who.
Yeah,
They did a bunch of different
Great
stuff.
studio. They're
And
great guys.
I was like, and then I just started reading on their website, and I was just like, they call it audio drama. That's why I haven't been finding it. Instantly, audio drama, and then just finding page after page. I was like, oh my God, there's more of it. And it was like I was on drugs forever.
Yeah, it was
listening to
finding
all these
we just
things.
basically became these ridiculous audio drama geeks. And then I'll never forget, because what year did Leviathan come out?
Leviathan started in 2008.
2008. Okay, so it was I guess I was working as a QA at a tech company, and I'm sitting at the freaking computer, just doing quality, just checking websites to make sure there's no bugs and whatnot. And my brother, he calls me up and he's like, "Hey Joshua, there's this thing called Leviathan Chronicles. You have to look it up." And I'm like, okay. I couldn't get my work done. I was completely nuts about it. But anyway, we're acting kind of ridiculous. We need to kind of go in through have a little bit of organization.
A little more structure here, because we're kind of fanboying.
But we need to explain to people, who are you, what Leviathan is, and then kind of have a little bit more of an organization here.
And we were joking about the fact that there's people like Tom Cruise, Morgan Freeman, the King of Now England.
We don't got time for those people.
And I don't have time for any of those people.
We got Christof Laputka.
Christof Laputka's here. He's the only one I give a shit about.
We don't got time for those people.
So, just to give everybody an idea, once you guys start listening to the Leviathan Chronicles, you will start understanding who our guest is, and we're telling all of y'all, even if you don't finish this episode, stop right now, go listen to at least the
That's
first
your
episode,
homework.
come back.
Go listen to Leviathan.
Listen to Leviathan Chronicles. So, I guess really what we wanted to start off with is, how the hell did you come out of nowhere?
Yeah, where did you come from? This guy just this is New York guy, and I have this full cast of people that makes this amazing show, and I'm like, huh.
I was a guy who had a father that loved science fiction, and he wasn't like a geeky Dungeons and Dragons. He was an all-American football player at Colgate. He was he was a businessman, but he had the heart of an artist, and he loved science fiction. He loved fantasy. He just had an incredible sense of imagination. And some of my best memories were discovering science fiction with my dad and him showing me stuff that's special. And I knew that in addition to loving it, the part of love is the creation of it. And I'd always harbored a desire to be a writer, but I was also living in New York, and New York, is an expensive city to live in, and a lot of the things that I wanted to do in my life, it's gotten a little pricey. It's gotten a smidge pricey. It's not on sale right now. But so I started a career in finance, and that's what I did for the first half of my life. And while it was rewarding in some ways, I always wondered, well, when am I going to get to become a writer? When, it seems like in my head, I had imagined that's something you do when you can afford to have like a cabin in Maine and you're in the woods, and I had this romantic vision of it. And then something happened, and it was probably around 2006 or 2007 when I started walking to work, and I think this is when podcasting was a tab on iTunes in the old software that Apple used to have, and I started hearing about what some of these guys were doing, and I was seeing these authors that were not getting published, and that was always my fear, right? How do you get published? What are the gatekeepers? What are the hurdles you have to overcome to become a published writer? And these guys were first-time authors and unpublished, but they had these beautiful manuscripts that were sitting, had been rejected by every publishing studio. And they said, listen, since it's not doing anything for a publisher, why don't I, much like Charles Dickens did, release one chapter for free on the internet and put it out there, and at least somebody gets to enjoy it. And what they discovered soon was that they could then go back to these publishing houses with empirical data that they had never received before to say, you said no one was going to read my book. Here's who's listening. Here are their ages. Here's where they live. Here are the demographics. And it really empowered these authors to not only find an audience, but then really have an avenue towards traditional publishing. And I'm listening to that, and I'm like, these stories are great. There should be a gunshot there, and there should be swelling music, and you should have a great British narrator, and all these ideas. And I thought it was good, but
you found one.
And I found the greatest. She's always loved Samantha. And I thought this could be more. And I had never done anything like this before, but back when Craigslist wasn't, creepy Craigslist. People use it for legitimate, services. We put out a wanted ad. We said, we're looking for voice actors to do this project. Come do some auditions, and we probably saw maybe 75 people on our first day, and we found maybe 10 that were like, these people we want to hold on to. And from them, they had other friends that were in the voice acting community, and from there, we slowly started to build this cast. And again, we didn't know what we were doing. It's kind of like, if anybody's ever done a massive house renovation, and if you knew what the cost was going to be at the end, and how much time it would take, you never would start in the first place. But the fact you don't know is what gets you to start it. This is kind of like one of those situations where we said, we didn't even necessarily know the term audio drama. We just wanted to make these full cast podcasts, and we thought, well, if we get all the voices recorded, maybe, I'm saying this laughing, we could put out an episode every 10 days. I think it's going to be a little, we're going to have to burn the midnight oil, maybe work through lunch a little bit, but I think we can do this.
Dude, I feel your pain.
We didn't, I think we might have hit it between episode 1 and 2, and 2 was already done. I think that might have been the only time we ever got to 10 episodes. And it very quickly became, that at that point I was still working full time, so it was difficult to, always put as much effort into it as I wanted to. But that's really how it started. And it was a desire to not just tell a story, but to tell it a certain way and explore what audio can be. And I think what's really interesting about what's happening in audio and fiction podcasts now is before it was a route to publishing. And now a lot of people think, well, this is a route to a TV show, or I'm really creating IP, but they're missing something giant in the middle, which is this beautiful craft of audio.
I already know what my brother's thinking right now. So I want you to just say
it is so much fun. You go ahead and say it.
Yeah, I know what he's thinking.
Come on.
Let's go for it.
People need to stop watching their goddamn TVs.
They gotta stop watching TV.
Everybody feels like they need to sit down and zone out on something and watch it.
Thank you.
And the audio drama is the thing that's so great about audio drama is that no matter whether it's Leviathan Chronicles, Byron Chronicles, old-time episodes of The Shadow, the entire universe of what you're listening to is unique to you as the listener.
You as a listener. That's exactly why it's
There is no Leviathan City that looks the same as it does to me. Nobody. And I mean, I know
Mine's
it looks
the
like
best. Mine's the best.
His is clearly the best.
Mine's the best.
But
he has the views, you know.
Yeah, right.
The floor plan is
right. But it flexes the imagination muscle of the mind. It allows you to not only to use your imagination, but also, hell, you can do other things while you're even listening to it for crying. I mean, you could wash the dishes for crying out loud. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But the point is
anything. You don't have to.
You can do work at a tech company when you're doing QA.
Exactly. That's what I was doing. Almost lost my job because of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so but like what you're talking about, and what I was saying was I feel your pain when it came to the editing thing, and there's something very special about being able to create audio drama. It's unlike where you can. It sounds weird, but you can actually have a lot of forgiveness when you're making something video. It seems like an audio drama. It's not what you put in it. It's what you didn't put in it that seems to ring the loudest.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll put a sound effect here, I'll make him walking or something like that, but the walking doesn't have an echo to it. It doesn't, when you shuffle a bag, it doesn't feel like it's there. It feels like it's in your face. It's like there's so many elements to it that make it,
to create the right atmosphere.
That makes it feel like you are in it.
And do you feel when you're creating it that, like, there's that moment, like, where, like, in the paper bag, where you're going through a bunch of effects and a bunch of treatments to it, and then when you get it, you're like, that's it. That's the sound. You know it instantly when you've hit that familiar note in your head that will allow you to fill in all the other gaps that are in the story, because you've been given this familiar touchstone of one sound effect that allows you to extrapolate everything else.
Right, exactly. Which we can go into that more later, because that was actually going to be one of the later questions I had, was kind of like what your process is, because I am doing this completely grassroots, almost 100% by myself with my laptop.
And for everybody who actually does listen to our show, 90% of this is my brother Jonah. Like, I'm just kind of like, I find guests, but Jonah does all the editing. He does most of the writing, like,
which isn't even. It's okay.
It's I'm not gonna lie. His writing is really good. It's really good. He actually just came out with a new show that we're coming out with, that we're interviewing our next guest, which is a modern day version of Plato's Cave, but it's all in a movie theater.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's interesting. And
it's good, Jonah. Stop freaking being such an asshole. It's a good show.
Okay, it's a good show.
It's a good show.
Sounds like a great show. Okay, and I'd be really excited to.
But here's what's the best part about it. It's like, it's not just a good show. It's imagine like a the director.
I was trying to give it the feel of almost
David
like
Lynch. Okay, imagine a David Lynch. Like, there's this, I don't know if you've ever seen this video. David Lynch has this show called Rabbits. That's on. He made this short film about these people. Like, well, they're not people. They're walking rabbits. That
they're human. They're human people with basically rabbit heads.
Yeah, they're rabbit heads, and and what happened?
So it's like a little bit of Donnie Darko.
Yeah, it's a little Donnie Darko thing, and they're very just in this dark, surreal. Everything is kind of slow and slow moving.
Lynchian.
Yeah, very, very David Lynch.
And it's like, I don't want to talk too much about it, because we're going to spoil it for when I release it.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, but it's good. The reason why I'm irritated is, like, I'm trying to give you a compliment. You're like, oh,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's hard to take compliments sometimes.
It's amazing. It's really good.
Okay.
It's really good.
But yeah, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about, and like later on. It's just like the whole process of what you go through. Like if you do editing, if somebody else does editing, all that kind of thing. Because to me, it's like it feels like it's so well done that you can't be doing it by yourself. And if you are, I want to learn from the master. Because,
totally.
Because it's, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to do.
It is. People don't appreciate it because content, especially audio content, seems on its surface so simple. Oh, just guys have a microphone, and we're in. I want to throw these stats out to to some of your listeners to really understand where fiction podcasting is right now and how amazing what the two of you, these two brothers that I've had the pleasure of meeting tonight, coming into this sector of fiction podcasting. It's really an ascendant medium right now. So if you look at podcasting right now, podcasting is like having a moment. Everybody finally knows about it. That wasn't true in 2008 when we started. It wasn't,
I know.
What's an audio drama?
It
was what's a podcast?
Right.
And that was challenging. Now everybody knows what a podcast is, but when you tell people, right, I have the True Theater podcast, they think it's just talk, or it's just something easy where we sit up, have some dumplings and wine and talk. But the audio drama, because they're used to that, they think it's much simpler than it is, and they don't associate this rich, dramatic shows that we create with they think it's just the Joe Rogan show. So now, for your listeners,
don't insult us.
We're not insulting you. So everybody knows, if you look at the top 20 segments of podcasting, like true crime, religion, education, women in health, fiction podcasting right now is about 15, and it is the number one fastest growing sector. It is tied as the number one segment for women aged between 18 and 34, and it's also the number one podcasting segment in Latin America. So there is an incredible amount of momentum that's happening right now that didn't exist even 18 months ago for this sector that you guys have been passionate about for over 10 years before there was even an internet. So I want all your listeners to know how early and visionary your passion is, and really where the industry is right now.
Wow,
and there's so many people that are coming into this sector right now, not necessarily because they're so passionate about telling a story through this medium, but because it's cheaper than filming a live action pilot. So
of course.
That's why a lot of people are saying, "Hey, listen, I can do a 10 episode series as opposed to a pilot, and present to a studio or to a network a more fully fleshed version, and of course have all the demographics that come with it." So, so I think there is not a lot of appreciation for how much goes into it and what you have to do. So,
absolutely.
And I'm just gonna tell everybody, it's like Jonah does almost everything. Like he does all the editing. So far he's done all the writing because I'm not creative and I can't edit for anything.
But he knows what a good audio drama is.
I do know what a good audio drama is. That is a fact. I will look at it, I'm like, that's good. I know it's bad. Just like when I was introduced to the Leviathan Chronicles, the first episode this is what's so great about Leviathan is that and Jonah, I know he's going to agree with me on this. It's one of the only audio dramas I've ever listened to where I felt like I was there.
Right.
It's like when I'm on the high Tenshi, I'm on the high Tenshi, it's like right from the first episode, I'm like, oh shit, I'm there. And I'm like, I am there. Like there's so many things I want to talk about this show that I know is going to be a spoiler, which I'm not going to talk about. But come on, let's just say Tully and McCallan, Rover. I don't need to say I'm not gonna say anymore, but it's like because I'm grabbing on I
can't breathe.
I am losing it. I'm like, this is the best shit I've ever freaking listened to, and I'm listening to it. And I'm like, I've actually had heart palpitations because I'm in this moment with these two people. I'm like, this doesn't happen in movies. You could watch a movie anytime you want, but when you're listening to Leviathan, you're not watching a movie. You are in it.
It's more immersive.
It's
because
immersive.
It's like movies and TV. It has a two-dimensional feel. It's all with what's in the box. It's all with what's in that box that you're staring
that
at.
stupid little screen.
Whereas anything that's audio drama, it's like you are standing in the middle of whatever's happening, and you're almost like this fly on the wall experiencing all of it. And you can't do anything about it, but you can experience it in 3 dimensionals of what your imagination is. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you is have you had this idea for this show forever, and you just decided you were like, I'm gonna do it, or was it just like you saw the opportunity for something really cool and were like, I think I can write a pretty good sci-fi, and then just started hacking away on a typewriter? And then came up with it.
It's an amazing question. My writing style, my creative process is, I think you start with one seed of an idea, and you got to give it water and room to breathe without necessarily knowing exactly where it's going to go. I knew there were elements that I wanted to bring together. I knew I wanted to tell a story. My most important thing was I wanted to tell a story that was believable, that would be living alongside real life. And I thought one of the greatest things was the way Harry Potter did that the way that the Wizarding World exists. It's on platform 9 3/4. But it's right there. And at least you created a believable paradigm that this could be here. And I wanted to create a world that was visceral and felt real, that was right under the surface of the world that we all lived in. Because when I was first enjoying a lot of that, the original audio dramas, when I was walking to work to a job I wasn't necessarily that thrilled about, but I was so grateful to take that time to, when I'm walking down, 48th Street and over to 6th Avenue, my job is to immerse myself in that world. And I wanted other people to believe that there was spy organizations that were, secretly living among that immortals, that somebody you could be talking to could really be 600, 700, 800 years old and not let you know that. That as a scuba diver, and I've told this story in some other podcasts, I developed a little bit of a passion for cave diving, and we were in one cave in the Cayman Islands where, you were in this spot where you were like, if I blow an air tube here, if I no one's finding you. Okay, this is it. This spot on Earth has not been seen by anybody else. Now, I think the tour guide takes people there every Tuesday and Thursday, so that's what I felt like at the time. But the point is, if this exists here at 85 to 95 feet, what exists at 1,000, at 10,000, at 30,000 feet underwater? That's an incredibly rich canvas for science fiction and for a narrative. And I wanted to incorporate those elements when we've had more people on the moon than we've had at the deepest parts of the Earth's ocean in the Marianas Trench, that whatever we're going to build is fundamentally plausible. So drawing on those tenets were part of the pillars for building Leviathan. Make it visceral, make it real, make it our pitch is we're James Bond meets science fiction on a Lord of the Rings scale. And that's what we try and do by making it both epic and comprehensive, but also something that you could believe is real and living alongside you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I'm only because I want Jonah to talk about his passion for sea. We're both sea people. I've even worked in deep sea in the North Atlantic.
No way.
I was.
Why are we not talking about this?
I worked in
Screw Leviathan. I want to
hear it. I worked. I worked in a galley. I was the head chef on a little tiny 90-foot trawler in the North Atlantic. But he's a nut for anything oceanic.
It's just any time.
And so I want to listen to Jonah talk about.
I've lived in every type of pretty much environments except for maybe the desert. I've lived in the mountains. I've lived in the plains, all over the place, and every single one of those places for me always has this element of being trapped. That's always what it feels like. It feels like I'm trapped. When I'm in the mountains, everybody's like, it's so beautiful, the mountains, the rivers, and all the wildlife and everything. And I'm looking at a wall.
A wall of rock.
A wall of rock that I can't get through. When I'm in the plains, I feel like I've got nowhere to go, and wherever that takes me is going to take me to another rock that I got to climb. The ocean always has this element of infinite mystery below me, and anywhere I can go beyond that.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
The show. That's why the show it called to me so much, because I'm like
we were both freaking just like this.
Anything in the ocean has always been like this feeling of like, even when I'm standing on the shore, it's like it's the beginning of infinity for me, and I love that. I loved every element of it, and so the fact that you've got Leviathan City it's the infinite possibilities of what could be down there, and who knows, there could be shit down there we still don't know about, and we just pretend like we saw some pretty neat sea life, and we're still finding stuff that's down there, and it's what's the last frontier, and we still can't get to the last frontier is right on the shore, and we can't even get to it.
Yeah,
and so that's what has this incredible element to it that we just love. But the other thing about we kind of wanted to ask you about the show. There's so many elements to it that I know you probably had a little bit of inspiration, because there kind of has this it has kind of a holy grail element to it. So you got this, you got. I don't want to be a spoiler to the people listening. I'm telling you, people listening to this show.
It's been out since 2008. Stop making me retarded. It's an amazing show.
All you people, stop. Just if you have to come back and listen to this episode in like 5 months after you've listened to all the other episodes, just come back. I think we've sold it enough to where you guys you're outside the loop already.
In fact, Matt, I don't know where he went. He's got Matt, the guy I'm staying here in New York. We listened to the first 4 episodes, and I was like, you have to listen to at least a couple episodes to understand who we're talking to. And he was like, oh, I get it. I get it now. This is gonna be great.
But yeah, there's it seems like there ties into a lot of mythologies. You have the kind of an Arthurian legend element to it with the Starstone. Mm-hmm. You have all the immortality elements to it, which always tugs on people. But it's the thing that was so unique about the immortality element of it is that, are they really immortal, or is it like
still die?
They can still die. It's like there's still this constant element of still clinging to something that's of value.
Right.
Well, I thought I wanted to come up with an original, because you say immortality, what you really end up veering into, whether you are realizing or not, is vampire territory. Right. And I love vampire stories, and vampires are cool, and there's definitely elements of that in Leviathan. But I wanted to look at immortality a different way, where if I said to you, how long are you going to live? And you'd say, well, lifespans in average American, call it 75 to 80 years. Okay. So you're going to be 70, 80 years old. How long can you live without oxygen? Well, oxygen, shit, I'm probably going to pass out after 5 minutes. Okay. How long can you live without food and water? And that's another number. That's maybe 30 days. So depending on your circumstances, your environment, and your body, your lifespan right now, not modified, we're not science fiction, honest to God, right now, human biology, there are many, many factors that can affect your lifespan. And I always thought of aging as, this is a curable problem. Like, this is, at some level, this is genetic carpentry. This does not have to be, an absolute certainty. And I wanted to play with some of that. And the funny thing is, we've had the most interesting thing that's happened in the 13 years in Leviathan is how often we've written about something and the technology has come true while we're writing it. In fact, we've got things now that are in Leviathan that are already dated, because like in some of the earlier episodes, like he handed somebody a data pad. They're like, isn't that an iPad? Like,
yeah, right.
We didn't have iPads then, but that's like what it was then. There were scenes where, he got the ticket to his plane. Like, we don't have paper tickets anymore for planes. But and if you look at what's happening with genetic coding right now, I think there was an article in the Times talking about how we're looking at the aging process as a curable condition, as just a factor of certain genetic sequencing that we have. So I wanted to play with that again. to tamp down the believability that these aren't super beings that would go on forever. But our tagline, and I credit my late wife with this, was immortality or freedom. Which would you choose? And we see it in politics and business and life, people making compromised choices for their own interests. And if you had to listen to somebody tell you what to do for the rest of your life, but you got to live forever, what would your choices be?
And that's actually part of kind of what I was leading into a little bit, was because, and you kind of, I wouldn't say you almost blatantly address this in the show, particularly with the backstory with Evangeline, is the very question of immortality or freedom, which would you choose, is almost like saying, which religion do you want to be in? And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
It really comes down to you have whatever number of religions offering some form of immortality.
Salvation,
whichever. And it seems like you're deciding to be a slave in order to be immortal. And nobody really thinks of it like that. I thought of it for years.
That's deep. I've never even heard you say that before. That's heavy.
That's kind of what we won't go into it right now. But
I know, but I'm tracking.
My brother and I, we have a very dense religious past.
Very dense.
Very dense. Very dense. Like more than you. We could talk about it off air, but it's
intense, man.
It's an intense, very thick.
And now
religious.
I'm like kind of a staunch anti-religionist.
Now we're kind of like, I feel like I wasted a lot of years of my life being a slave in order to obtain this immortality that I didn't even understand what it was. And so even when you're talking about it in this show, it's like, okay, everybody's immortal, but who's actually free in this? Who's actually free to do whatever they want? In fact, the only person I remember on the show who seemed like he was kind of free was that pilot who lived on...
Henderson.
Yeah, the
Riverstone.
pilot. He was immoral, and he was like, well, "I'm doing my own shit. Y'all do whatever you want, but I'm doing my own thing." It was like it seemed like he got it. It's almost like he got the gift of immortality and like got a clue. Whereas everybody else is like, "We're trying to fix the world," and I'm like, "It still is worse than when you started."
Right. Is it all just futile? Right.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Even with all the bells and whistles. Right.
And I don't want to bring up something. But you did mention your late wife. Her name was Allie?
Yes.
Allie.
That's right.
It's like, we already made a decision that before you got here that we are dedicating this episode to your wife, Allie. May she live in the water. We meet her again in the water. Just as you said in one episode.
Thank you.
Maybe
Thank you both so much. I'm so touched.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Allie.
And I'll say,
Allie.
if your wife was anything like I love my wife, she must have been an amazing person, because, I mean, the best way I describe being with my wife is like, just being with her, it feels like it's what home is. That's home.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And so it's whenever I'm not around my wife, I'm never home. And that's what it feels like. So
I do remember, God bless her, but like when your late wife passed, we were there with you.
Oh.
We knew that it was like Jonah was like,
oh,
and we were like, damn,
really?
I don't mean to freaking make you emotional.
No, it's so kind.
We were there with you. We were like,
because it was like, as much as I was so frustrated about waiting, it's like, when's the next season come out? And then I heard that, I was like, I was okay with the show never coming back. I was okay with it.
I was like, okay, well, Christof's wife is like, and then we found out, it was like, when your wife passed, we were like, if it never comes back, that's fine, because we were like, you did such a like what you brought us into with your show is so amazing. My brother and we bonded over the show like you wouldn't believe. Like we were like,
guys.
Jonah would call me up and he'd be like the new Leviathan's out, and I'd be like, hey, I got a hot date with Sally tonight. Hey, Sally, sorry, I gotta stand you up.
Some came up, sweetheart.
Some came up. I gotta get a pizza and listen to the Leviathan.
Yeah, right.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's like my brother. We had this thing. We're like, because so many months the new Leviathan would come out. And we'd be like,
oh, it was, and I mean, I don't think I haven't probably spoken about on any podcast, but it killed me when I'm not releasing episodes. It is not an enjoyable life to lead when you desperately want to tell the story, and for, I forget how big the gap was. I think it was 2.5 years or something like that, but it was agony to not be releasing Leviathan episodes. It was I knew it was never a doubt in my mind that we were going to finish it. For my wife, you talk about your wife being home. The greatest thing is she wanted Leviathan. She didn't want me to be in finance anymore. She saw what it was doing to my mood, my health, and everything else, and all she wanted was Leviathan to work. And to be honest, back then the infrastructure just wasn't there. I mean, podcasting hadn't reached the critical mass that it has now. So, I wish she could see us all here today, because she would be so incredibly pleased and happy. I mean, honestly, God, and she would love these dumplings.
I remember hitting up Jonah. I was like, have you heard of a thing called podcasting? I was like, oh, what's this?
Seems very technical.
I was like, you got to go to the website and get the RSS feed and then
bring it over here. And it's like I click. It's like I go to a website and I say, here's your RSS feed. I click it and this string of random stuff would pop up. I was like,
it's like looking at the Matrix or something. I want to hear a show.
What am I supposed to do with this shit? Yeah. I'm like, I have no idea.
But see, this is why I loved that time. I loved that time because it was like, that was the time when my brother and I were listening to, like, we found you, and we're like, it was like this magical time where it's like when you found something good, it was like, yes, and you're like finding something so amazing, and we would sit there and listen to your back in the day I bought the ringtone.
Oh, I remember that! I remember we did that.
Yeah, I bought your ringtone. I was like, and then I see on my phone, and I was like,
wow.
I think I had like a Motorola Razr or some shit. It's like and it's like the Leviathan theme song come on. I'm like,
oh,
yeah.
Man.
Like, I got so excited about it. Yeah. I bought the ringtone to this show.
Wow.
And that was, but I know that you say that it was really, that you are upset about not having a show come out, but at the same time, I can't imagine any better, because it was like my brother, we were like anxiously waiting for each episode in that 3 months to 4 months time. And then when I finally got that phone call from Jonah saying the new Leviathan's out, I'd be like, it was just so exciting. And it was like, edge of seat.
The weight almost had its own element.
The weight had its own element of just
and
awesome.
It's like, in contrast, I will say, Hollywood is starting to make audio dramas, and they suck.
I hate it so much.
Really suck. I mean, I wouldn't say they're like terrible, but they lack a creative, organic feel to them, that it's almost like it feels like you're listening to a commercial audio drama. It's like they're putting this out because they know it's starting to be a thing, and so they're starting to make audio dramas that kind of have the same kind of feel as TV's starting to make this nosedive of quality, and the audio dramas that they're making almost has the same feel to it. Whereas back in the early 2000s, everything was so grassroots, and everybody was like, we can create. Everybody was just so excited to be able to create something, and they did it for the love of it,
right? And the passion for the medium itself.
Yeah.
And you would never expect to take an amazing voice actor and just put them in, the new Tom Cruise movie and be awesome actors on screen. And I think a lot of Hollywood just try to take all these great film actors, like, oh, they'll be great they'll be great voice actors, or they'll do great in audio drama, and some are really great, but some that's not their playground. And I think there's enough financial mechanisms in Hollywood that incentivize that's part of your repertoire as an actor. Like, get some voice, get some VO, cred, do a couple Pixar movies, do a couple audio drama podcasts, and it becomes more about filling out a full resume as an actor than people that really want to push the bounds of how to tell a story just using sound. I mean, and I'd love to talk to you about that, is how, you've got this toolbox and how you use the levers, and there's so many different ways to, make people feel close and far away and distant and alive and affect mood through music. I mean, there's an intimacy with audio drama that you don't have with anything else. I mean, as you were saying before, with that screen that's there, the screen is a barrier, but when it's audio drama, I mean, you're letting somebody inside your imagination, like what could be closer or more intimate than that. And I think as creators, we have a great responsibility to really do something that's evocative, because there's no other medium that can do it that way.
Absolutely.
Like when we're like when I listen to Leviathan, I'm like, I am friends with Oberlin St. Clair. Like,
He's such a good guy.
He's such a good guy. I'm like, I love this dude.
He is terrific.
And the guy who plays his voice, what's his name?
His name's JP.
JP, because they JP. So I'm like, listen, when you first hear him, he's like, oh, he just sounds like a Weasley little freaking Irish guy. But he's like,
he sounds like the Lucky Charms guy.
Yeah, he's like the Lucky Charms guy. But then he winds up being the most badass dude on the whole freaking story.
Nice guys can be strong guys.
Yeah,
and that's important.
He's so amazing, and but then also what I love about your show, when like I said, it's like there are moments where you are there. Like, I'll never forget the moment where we actually went to Leviathan City, and I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, oh, here we go. It's like, and I was there. I was in it, and I was like, you can't get that from a movie. You can't get that from a movie. You can't get that for even, I would even argue you can't get that from most books. But this audio, your audio drama is it was like, oh shit, I'm in the salty squid right now.
And I would say it reminds me of something he told me one time, and it's true, and it almost feels a little bit like we've been not to be too crass, but almost like mind molested a little bit when it comes to film. Is I remember him CGI. Bringing it up one. That's what he knows I'm bringing up.
Yeah,
it's almost like we have been conditioned to almost imagine things in CGI, which is really freaking irritating. It's like I've started now I'll be listening to any number of audio dramas, and now when I see a tiger in my imagination, the tiger is freaking in CGI, and I'm not even watching it.
Right, it's a Life of Pi tiger or something, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, CGI, it's like no matter how realistic they can make it, it always feels fake. And now that my imagination is turning into CGI, even my imagination is starting to turn fake, and it's pissing me off.
Dude, which is awesome. An awesome segue into your show your newest show from what I understand, is still in the Leviathan universe.
Yes.
But it has an AI. It's about AI.
It is. It's so for your fans that don't know Leviathan is a deep world build, and it's one of the biggest, by number of episodes, one of the largest audio dramas. Not the largest, but among the largest that's been done, certainly here in America. And the main Leviathan story is 50 episodes. And my long-term goal is Leviathan will be at least 100 episodes when I'm finished. But before we get to the next 50 episodes, the first 50 we've informally called the Immortal Saga. The second 50 is going to be called the Maddox Ascendancy. But before we can get ready to that, it's the first time it's ever been put anywhere. It's on your show. Before we get to those next 50 episodes, we have a number of spin-off stories where we want to develop certain plot elements that are going to come into play in those 50 episodes. And the first of those spin-offs, our first Leviathan spin-off, came out in November, called The Rapscallion Agency. So your fans can go right now to Apple and Spotify and look that up right now. And what we did in Rapscallion was to kind of take a little different tact with Leviathan, where Leviathan is a grand scoping story. It takes place in locations all around the world, different cities, under the sea, above the sky, and like I said, all around the world. We wanted to tell a more intimate story with Rapscallion. So the entire season, except for our prologue, all takes place in Paris. In the same way that we talk, how Leviathan is in many ways a love letter to New York, because that's where I was when I was writing it and where I grew up. I wanted to give everybody that sense of a great European vacation, that study abroad, in France kind of feeling to it, and make it a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit more fun. And this is kind of our little bit more of an art house type feel to it. Our next spinoff, anyways, getting back to Rapscallion, the first 5 episodes are out, and the next 5 are starting to drop today. So fans can go there. Our next spinoff is called the Invenios Expeditions. And that is, we're going to start recording that in LA probably in March and April. And there's 2 things that were great about it. Was, first of all, you said you were talking about the sea, and I was dying to jump in at that point, but I loved what you were saying, so because I didn't. and what our sound engineer, Luke Allen, said, I'm so glad we're doing Invenios. I'm so glad to be going back to the ocean. Nice. And that's really what Invenios is about. We're going back to the ocean. Yes. And in Leviathan, 2 of our main characters, 2 sailors, Jeffrey Tully and Oberlin St. Clair, are 2 sailors that are down on their luck, and they have a dream of building this ultimate research boat inspired by Jacques Cousteau's Calypso and Bob Ballard's research boat found the Titanic. And they're finally able to realize this dream. And Invenios is their adventures on the high seas this ultimate boat that they finally had the chance to create.
Is the same actors going to be in it?
Absolutely. They're in it. And that's
Do any of these actors live in New York that we
Absolutely not. It has become so unwieldy now, but we're all so committed to it that we all started in New York, but now everybody's all over the country, if not all over the world.
We want to know how you found these people, because they're all so good. They're so good.
They are. They're all. I'm so lucky to have their talents and their love. We started with just a Craigslist ad, and from there we asked our actors, "Hey, do you know any other friends that might want to do this?" And it started that way. As time went on for Rapscallion was our first SAG production. That was kind of a big step up for us. So we did a more formal casting process with some casting agents, and that one was a little bit more formalized. But before then, we were, just trying to. It was a challenge to find people that could do it. And I think there's, I think it's a little bit easier when you're in major metropolitan areas like New York and Los Angeles, because the acting pool is just a little deeper. But again, now with Riverside and some of the new software recording solutions that are available right now for some of your listeners that want to create their own audio dramas, there is technology now that you can create virtual studios and really create an entire world of a talent pool that you can draw
which
from.
I'm definitely going to be asking you a lot about off air, because it's like I know what I want to do, and I'm having issues.
It's easier. I'm telling you, it's easier than you think. You just don't know what door to open.
Right,
but
exactly.
It's there for you.
Now, since you've successfully made me feel dumb by saying the word rapscallion, can you give me a definition of what a rapscallion is?
A rapscallion is like a scoundrel. It's somebody who's a little bit naughty, a little bit sneaky, and definitely on the younger side of the equation. Kind of like a whippersnapper might be another synonym that you might use for it. But that's the idea behind it.
And then the next one was what was the next show coming
Next one is called the Invenios Expeditions.
Now, what does Invenios mean?
Invenios is a derivative of a Latin word that means indomitable. Okay. So that was the name that they decided for their ship. Yeah. Slightly creatively modified.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we won't go into any of it right now because it's I'm sure it's very long. It's a very long conversation and something I confess I've never actually done myself, but I've always had a bit of a fascination with etymology of names and things like that. And no doubt, tons of your characters, I'm sure, all have meanings behind their names and why they're picked and all these kind of things. One of the questions I had was Harlequin.
Harlequin, totally, Harlequin.
Is it a variation of Harley Quinn for Batman?
Oh,
because
no.
every time I heard it, all I kept hearing was Harley Quinn, and it's Harlequin. But it's not.
But he is a trickster. But he is a trickster.
Yes,
He's a
he
trickster,
is.
Yeah. I love Harlequin. He's he's handsome. In my opinion, he's my favorite character.
He's amazing, and he is in New York. He's actually.
Can we meet Harlequin? I swear to God, I would lose my shit if I didn't meet Harlequin.
You don't even know. I could tell you where he's playing and singing tonight. It might not be tonight, I can tell you, but I have to look at his calendar. But no, for real. No, Harlequin was great, and Harlequin was a character that believe it or not, I flew to London to get Samantha's recording. So Samantha Parker, Turville, now Samantha Parker, is at the time was a British citizen. She's American now. And again, this is early. I can't express this to your listeners. Like back in 2011 and 12, like there weren't these software solutions. So if you needed something, like you kind of had to go to the store, to get it.
Right,
so, we were at this point where we had like 5 episodes of Leviathan done, but with no narration. I'm like, we got this narration. We're sitting on these. So it was worth the time to go to London. And I lived in London a very, very, very long time ago for a brief period. And I think it's a city that inspires me a lot because I think a lot of Leviathan's inspired by architecture. And I think when you walk around the streets of New York and you can feel this energy, but then like look up and you look at the buildings, you see, they're tall buildings. Look at the top of the buildings. That's where they get interesting. That's where the penthouse happens. That's where there's setbacks. That's where whatever architect got to design that building, that was his playground. That's where he got to put his little touches on. And it's so fun to think like, well, what could be the alternative use, or what would this building look like underwater? And what would that be like? Now, when you go to London, it's such a city with such history, and it's such an old city that you see these buildings that are like, is that a bank? Is that a club? Is that a private headquarters? And your imagination starts to run wild with what secrets could lie behind, these wonderful, Gothic and Victorian and all the different architecture buildings in London. So Harlequin was really kind of like a little bit of a Bruce Wayne and a little bit a cross between, I'd say, like Bruce Wayne and Christof Lambert in Highlander, where you had someone who wanted to live by their own rules and was kind of isolated as a result of that, and what that would do.
He's just such an awesome character. He was a priest, like a Catholic priest.
I love that you know that from the special editions.
Oh, yeah, we do.
So many of our listeners don't actually, I would say 90% of our listeners don't know that.
Really?
Because we
listen to the extras,
We
put out Harlequin is this Catholic priest that became an immortal and was like,
and
fuck
lost
this. And he's like, I'm gonna do my own damn thing.
I'm never gonna meet God.
He almost has a God complex. He almost has himself a semi-God complex because he realizes that God might be real, it might not be. It's like I've been played my whole life, and in his character, he was like, because as us who we grew up very religious, we have this understanding. It's like this pull of like feeling like we have to do these rules because God's gonna hate us if we don't.
Horrible way
to live.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but then Harlequin, you can kind of. He goes completely the other way, but he still has this good heart, while at the same time being like,
a major
fuck
cynic about
you.
it.
I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do everything I want. I like this Harlequin guy. I really like this dude. I get him. He's on my team.
Harlequin's is probably one of my favorite characters, and I say it especially because
you can't give too many spoilers. Our audience has to listen. show.
Yes, there is a scene. It is actually the last scene in Leviathan, and I won't give it away, but where Harlequin, despite his arrogance and his bon vivants, loses something that he didn't realize was the foundation to his life.
I love that you use the term bon vivants. It's a very Louisiana.
a little Napoleonic flair for you.
Yeah.
But he, lost a foundation that he didn't realize he was resting upon. I think that happens to a lot of us in life, where a tragedy happens and you don't realize what you're missing till it's gone. And that was part of his journey. It was very important. I think he portrayed that incredibly effectively. I think it was a performance that still brings tears to my eyes, but it was important to kind of explore that, like these immortal beings are still have great elements of humanity, and they're elements that we all share.
That's
That's
so important, because it's like, we knew that they were like that they're immortal, but they still could die. Which is what made it's the Superman fallacy.
It makes you hold on to it even tighter.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like even because it's like the Superman fallacy. It's like Superman became a boring character because he could never die. Like this, who cares? He just
right. He's always strong enough to do anything. Like
he can't die.
He's not,
It's like it's a joke.
It's like there's never this element of like, oh, is he gonna win? Well, he of course is gonna freaking win. He's Superman.
He's Superman.
So there's always you'd want to hold on to it a lot longer. I think we got two more questions about the show specifically.
Please.
All right.
One is
I have one.
I want him to ask the second one. The first one I'll ask about Freddy.
Oh, Freddy. Fish egg Freddy.
Egg Freddy.
Okay, well, this goes back because our show is a conspiracy podcast where we actually talk about like weird stuff that happens, like weird history, people that we can even talk about UFOs, whatever. But this one is actually very special.
No, it's not until you answer the question. I'm trying to keep him.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
I don't know. I'm waiting until he answers the question.
All right.
Did the actor change?
Yes.
Oh, why?
See, I told you.
Fish like Freddy.
Yeah. Why did the actor change?
Because when we were first doing that, again, we have to go back in history. This is going back when we were doing this in 2008. And to your point, we didn't have the talent pool that we did back then. I mean, there wasn't, the internet wasn't wasn't internet, but it wasn't around like it is now. And so originally I did the voice for Fish Egg Freddy. And
you did?
Yeah.
You're the original Fish Egg Freddy.
You guys didn't know that?
I would never guess.
You're the original Fish Egg Freddy.
You didn't know that?
That's awesome.
No, I did it, but it was because we didn't have anybody else to do it, so I did it, and we've done that in many places because to a certain extent, Leviathan is a living work, and we've had situations where certain actors just really decided that they don't want to do acting anymore, and they weren't able to finish the roles, or we just couldn't get them, and we lost them. So we had several situations where we had an actor portraying a character in the first half, and then a different actor in the second half, and that's what you have to do, and shows have done it. But when we have the resources and the time, what we try and do is then get that actor to re-record all the previous actors' lines, so there's more consistency. Because I'm always interested in, I care about, all the fans that are following us now, but what's great about fiction podcasting and what you're discovering is it's an evergreen content, meaning there's always somebody that's discovering Chapter 1 of Leviathan, that's seeing Star Wars for the first time, that's reading the first comic book. Like, those experiences matter. So we want to create, as consistent an experience across it as we can. So we found an actor that's a far better voice actor than I am, to do that role.
The original Fish Egg Freddy, you did awesome.
No, there are much better voice actors than that.
Annoying guy. He's a very annoying.
I take great pride in that.
It's so funny. It's like, you're the original Fish Egg Freddy. Like, when I listen, I hear Senshin, this like booming deep voice. It's like like, hello, McAllen. And I'm like, that's what, had no idea that you were
It was one of those
fishing.
characters, it was like, honestly, it's like looking up the cat. I've tried to look up certain people just to see if they had been in other things. In all honesty, at no point would I have been interested in trying to find out what Fish Egg Freddy was in.
I only said that because I thought, I don't know if you know what because the reason why I brought this up because I thought it might be what's called a Mandela effect. Do you know what the Mandela effect is?
Oh,
it's like it's some weird. It's a conspiracy theory thing that happens in the truther community. Which, like for instance, the Berenstein Bears are now the Berenstain Bears. They're not the same.
It's like there's certain things that have potentially changed in the past that have rippled throughout time and space.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that we have residual memories of it being a certain way, even though there's no historical record of that thing ever being that.
Oh, interesting.
And
okay.
so when I was listening, because I was re-listening to season 2, because when you came out with season 3, I was like, I'm not even going to listen to this until it's freaking done. Because, like I said, we have PTSD from the previous
And I'll tell you this
time.
before we get any further, I'll let you know, I have not even started season 3 because I'm insisting my wife finish it.
Yeah.
And she's going to hear this episode probably before anybody else. And she says, like, I've been listening to it since you left. And I'm like, you better. Because I'm talking to the creator of the thing. I can't even talk about season 3. So he's already spoiled the ending for me. So
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
I didn't mean to do that.
I know. It doesn't matter.
But I was like, we're interviewing him. You don't even know the ending of it.
No, I'm waiting
But
for
I
my wife
listened
to finish it.
High five to you, bro. Like, the ending.
Well,
Quite
thank
good.
you.
Quite
Thank
good.
you.
But, it's
yeah.
but anyway, what I was saying is like, I was listening to season 2 again. And
Did
I
you
was
get?
like,
Wait, I want to know one question first. Did you find the secret scene?
Secrets? Oh,
damn it. Don't tell him what it is. I want him to try and find it.
Scene?
I want him to
I'm
try
gonna
and
tell
find
you.
it.
Try and find it now.
Now he's got to go listen to it. Now he's got to
Get
try
out
and
of
find
here.
it. All right, anyway.
I know we sound like a couple of freaking high school girls. Because we're kind of hyper fans of this show.
No.
But it's like we were like, what happened was like I was listening to season, and I heard Fish Egg Freddy. He's like,
that's not the same guy.
Who the hell is that guy? That's not Fish Egg Freddy.
And I still have it on my.
like,
I still have the original episode.
The original
downloaded on my phone.
And I told him, I was like, listen to this. And he's like, is that Fish Egg Freddy? And he's like, and we were at the Forget Me Not coffee shop around the corner. And he's like,
and we have both our phones playing both characters. I'm like,
same time.
This is not the same
character. Who is this?
No, we swapped them out.
Yeah, so it was just one of these things. I was like, don't flip out. He's probably got a perfectly reasonable explanation for it.
I'll tell you what. One of our goals, and it depends a little bit on our funding and what we're able to do. But if we had our druthers, this is more for you guys, and your fans may not know this, but so we talked about Leviathan's going to have 2 50-episode sagas, and in between we're going to have a series of special edition episodes. And one of the one is called Rothschild Agency, the other one's Invenios, and then we have these other groups. We want to do one show dedicated to the Black Door Files, one episode that's going to be one series that's going to be dedicated to an evil group that you haven't met yet. You will in Rapscallion, called the Chrysanthemum Consortium. And then we're going to have a 5th one called the Syraxian Cataclysm. So we actually wanted to tell the backstory of the aliens and why they came to Earth and what happened in their civilization and what brought that in.
Yes.
And that gives us an avenue to pivot to hard science fiction. Now, all of these different spin-offs all will contribute to the next 50 episodes of Leviathan, adding these plot elements. But where was I going with this? I just lost it.
It's fine. Like all we know is like the very idea of like the concept of why the hell.
I'm sorry. I remember what it was. So before we get to the last 50, Robin, our lead senators, what I'd really like to do is go back and remaster all 50 episodes of original Leviathan.
Oh,
to
you
go
can't
back.
remaster a freaking perfect thing.
I think we can make it even. I think we can make it even better.
Bullshit.
I think it could do
amazing. What are you talking about? You're
we
making me irritated.
We
by this.
listened to it and we're like, we should have done that. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's creative.
Dude,
So,
man,
but the reason why we do it for two reasons. One is because we're perfectionists and we really care about.
I'm sorry, I'm being an asshole.
No. I want. This is good. But the other reason is
perfect. It's a perfect.
But if I did
artwork.
it, you'd re-listen to it just to see what I did to yell at me.
I would.
And that would be a nice way to lead into the next 50.
I would.
But okay,
I would listen to it just to see. It's like, okay, what did Christof do to make it better?
But what's your other question?
Okay,
I know you got it.
There is a episode.
Ooh, I'm sitting up.
I know. There's an episode where you. What's the guy? Edward? What's the character?
The teenage sounding looking guy.
Okay, there's a teenage immortal.
Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Nathaniel.
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That you take to a pho restaurant. And I want to know if that place is real.
The one in Koreatown on 32nd Street?
Yes.
Of course it's real. Of course it's real.
We're going there! And we're going to eat.
Pho is like his favorite food for
it's one of the greatest foods in the world.
We grew up in New Orleans in Vietnam town. So we grew up next to a Vietnamese restaurant our whole life. So we know what good pho and good Vietnamese food tastes like. And so when I heard that, I was like, I remember you describing it as Senshin to Nathaniel. And I was like, is that good? It's really that good. I'm like, I want to. And then it's like you go up to this like this backdoor place in New York City. And it's like, I want to eat there so bad. I want to go there.
It's such a wonderfully simple dish and so complex. There are
so many
ingredients that go into it.
I know.
And you think it's just soup, but there's so much.
I've actually learned how to make it myself.
He makes a really good pho.
How long does it take you to make pho? Like a week? The broth takes a while.
The broth takes a long time.
Right.
The broth is the key. It takes a long time. Mm-hmm. But then you can also mess up the noodles if you don't know how to cook it right. It's like but the broth does take a while. It's like it involves like a lot of clove and star anise and then all these other things, and it takes some time. Mm-hmm. But when I heard you describing it to Nathaniel in the show, and I was like I hope that place is real because I would love to go to I was hanging out with Senshin eating freaking pho in that spot. I was like, that would be amazing.
I love that. I love that.
Like it's a very specific. I know it's so specific, but I was like, I want to eat there.
I put it there because I'm as passionate about pho as I think you are. I think it is an incredible great food, and it's open 24 hours a day. Koreatown, that is your for all your friends visiting New York. That is where
it's open 24 hours a day.
Most of the places in that town, like you can,
Jonah,
you could get a.
All right, we're going.
We gotta go tonight. Before you fly out. We gotta go tonight.
We're going tonight. We're going tonight.
If you will show us where it is.
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
So, one other thing I wanted to do, and we keep saying one other thing.
No, come on.
We're like, you don't understand. This is kind of a dream of ours.
I got. You guys are so much fun. I got all night here. Please, let's hear it.
We have been so pumped about interviewing you.
This is great.
Like the president of the United States could freaking come up to me like, sorry, we don't have time for you, dude. We got to interview Christof.
Come on, this is
I know
great.
It sounds like we're kissing your ass.
No, I'm having such a
because we've been so. That's another thing we had to ask. Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of a record called Jeff Wayne's musical version War of the Worlds?
No, I never have.
Jeff Wayne. He's a British
version of War of the Worlds.
Composer. And
this is what we have kind of hooked us onto radio drama when we were
and we
kids.
thank our dad.
This was the gateway drug.
Yeah, this was the gateway. Okay. My dad had this on record, on vinyl, when we were kids, and it is this British vinyl record where it is the music can be good and bad at the same time because it's kind of a mix of both. Like it's really good like orchestra music, but also mixed with bad disco music, but also has a lot of narration and
it's like an
sound
audio
effects.
drama rock opera thing.
Yeah, it's like a
from the 70s.
rock disco opera.
So it's Meatloaf meets H.G. Wells. That is great. Wow.
And it's actually been labeled. It's actually been labeled the creepiest version of War of the Worlds ever created.
It has been.
Yeah, because of the feel and the way he does the alien. It does have a creepy ass feel to it. If you, it's like I always tell people,
when the aliens come out of the freaking, it's like dum.
We'll let you hear some of it, but it was the one thing that got us started on it. We actually just wanted to ask if you ever heard of it before. We can show you a copy of it.
Yeah,
but something I think
it's
something I think you'd get a kick out of.
Oh, I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yes.
And then the only other thing I want to do, because it was just one of those last minute ideas I had that we've never actually done. Know how big of fans we are of it. We've never actually bought the full set of Leviathan. And I wanted to, on our podcast on the air, basically give you cash and say,
I'm not taking your money. Yeah. No way. You got to dump. You're not doing that. No.
Cash.
You guys are getting tomorrow. You guys need it free.
It doesn't matter. You need to have the money because it's almost like penance for me not buying it already.
It makes it real.
It needs to be official.
Well, you guys will have it.
You can pay for the Uber to go
done. We will do that. You guys are gonna have that, and you'll have Rapscallion tomorrow. Awesome. So you'll have something fresh to listen to, and I'm trying to think if you haven't listened to season 3.
I have. I've listened to.
It'll make perfect sense to you, and it'll be even more sense for you. So that'll be great. But that'll be a fun listen to for your flight home.
Well,
I want to ask you one question before we go because I think it's great. It's really fun for other audio creators to share ideas. Like when you're creating something, everybody has like a scene that they want to create. Like, what is the audio drama scene of your dreams? And I know there is one that you've thought of one. If I could figure out how to convey this scene, this story, this emotion, this series of events through sound. I know there's probably one in your heart.
There's a couple of them that I've had very recently that
I'd really love to hear them.
Do you understand that Christof was asking your opinion?
Yeah. Okay. So
here we go.
Here we go. I actually have two recent. One is an old idea, and another one is a more recent idea, and I find them to be pretty much in the same category of pretty good ideas. The one idea I've had for a very long time has to do with time travel, because I've always hated time travel stories, with the exception of comedies, because you're not supposed to take them seriously. Like Back to the Future. I don't have to take it seriously.
Time machine.
Right. Because time travel is always this complex subject where they always screw up the grandfather paradox, which I was explaining to them what the grandfather paradox was literally just yesterday. So I had an idea for a time travel story where it's made very clear that you can travel to the past and change things with the full understanding that you're not changing your current dimension. That you can only change the dimension that shoots off into another dimension and you can come back to your current dimension, but you can never change what you currently are in.
So it's essentially the many worlds theory.
It's the many worlds
and
theory.
Jumping in between the two things.
Now, granted, I will say this from a philosophical standpoint. I personally don't, and people have their opinions. My personal opinion is the multidimensional theory is purely that, just a theory. I do not personally believe in it. But from a fiction standpoint, it's got infinite possibilities.
Sure.
So I liked the idea of having a time travel element where you could time travel back in the past and use other dimensions as almost like a hands-on experiment to see what could happen if we had done this and learning from our current route.
almost like giving yourself a simulation. What would my life have been like if I had...
And then you'd add in all kinds of moral elements, like ethical questions into that whole thing. It's like, well, if I go back and shoot this guy because he's my dick husband, you know, but he's not actually my husband, did I actually kill this guy? And he's like, well, no, he's from another dimension. But it's like, is it murder? You know, you can get all kinds of
So this sounds super boring.
No, I'm going to say fucking awesome premise. So, but now my question is, why tell it through sound? And what makes it interesting acoustically and sonically?
That's the good question.
Well, no, that's a good question.
Because I think you've got the time travel moment. You've got a great opportunity for effects there. Do you alter the soundscape slightly in the travel dimension versus that one and make it, you know, either a little bit more echoey or something else to distinguish those two?
Well, from a soundscape perspective, there could be this element where, I don't know if you ever watched the sci-fi fan, I'm sure you have. Have you ever watched Sliders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Okay, Sliders. Big fan of great show, Infinite Possibilities. That's one of them made it great. Sliders always had this thing where they go into a different dimension where it was like everything was so screwed up, and of course, conveniently, they were only there for 5 minutes. Even though if they were there for even any longer, they'd all be dead. Right. But they were always there for a few minutes, so whatever. So if from a soundscape perspective, you could almost have it to where they've mastered the ability to stay within a certain parameter of dimensions, but if they go outside those parameters, everything starts to alter in weird soundscape type ways that doesn't quite fit with this reality. You know, it could be anything. It could be any number of things.
You could do such great things with that. That's a great. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. You could really amp up the creep factor in that. Where like what is the real definition of horror? It's something you know really familiar that's slightly tweaked differently. It blows your mind. And being able to do that with sound a little bit in other dimensions is a great idea.
Yeah,
that could be really cool.
Yeah, so that's
I subscribe to that. I want to hear that show.
Yeah,
I mean it. I want to hear that show.
All right. Maybe I'll
subscribe to your show.
The other one I had was relatively recent. It was kind of inspired a little bit by the guest we're having on in a few weeks, because he talks a lot about reincarnation and things like that. It kind of has this element of if somebody had it's like more of like what's the word I'm looking for? It's just kind of a thought experiment where, what if somebody could predict the future, but the only thing they could predict was what was going to happen in their future life, and they never could verify that it was their actual future life they were predicting. They were always seeing visions of their future life, and they just think,
is it my life, or is it another dimension, another universe is me?
No, it's this dimension. You're reincarnated every time you die. Your next life, you come back to life as another incarnation.
Okay.
And this person in this current incarnation, this current incarnation,
isn't sure if the visions are related to him
isn't sure if it's
or his
related
next.
to anybody. He just knows that he's having these very vivid visions of something that looks very much like the future. So out of pure bottle in the ocean, he decides to write a letter to his future self, and he requests that his future self has a past life regression so that their minds can meet up.
Wow.
That's kind of an idea I have. Now, as far as soundscape, I don't know. It's just a story I have. But, you know, there was actually an audio drama that had kind of the same element that was off of the Seeing Your Theater, which kind of inspired it. But it's a different spin on it. But his version
we talk about what's my version?
The City of Dreams guy.
Oh.
It was actually J. Michael Straczynski. I don't know. He was actually wrote a lot of the Babylon 5 stories. Okay. But he had an audio drama where it dealt with reincarnation.
Jump in.
But anyways, for for an actual episode, I think we almost need to end it because we can
just having
go
too
on
much
for,
fun talking.
I know it's like okay, we can just talk.
We can sit here and talk till freaking.
We could talk forever, but you know, it's like it's
Well, listen, I wanted to really, truly thank you guys for having me here. Not just, for your incredible hospitality and warmth, but to meet two people that are so passionate about this medium that, I intend to give my life to and have break bread with people that are passionate about storytelling and about telling stories that mean something and really ask, I think what makes science fiction best, and these questions that you're asking about time travel are really about, what is the true nature of man? What is our reality? Is there an afterlife? Is it not? And I think we can examine some of those questions in those stories, and those are the stories we need to hear, and they get us thinking. And it's so exciting to see you guys being passionate and, more importantly, creating your own. Be a creator, and that's great.
It's I'll just say that when Jonah introduced me to Leviathan Chronicles, it's kind of a weird thing where it's like it actually has become a part of our life. Like, I know it sounds so cheesy.
It does.
It's really annoying.
I know, it is.
But we talk about it a lot. It's almost obnoxious. And we're 41 years old. And we're like, oh, what about that thing in Leviathan? And we're like, are we adults yet?
Yeah. And it's one of those weird things, I'm thinking, I think Christof's gonna show up thinking we're some kind of comic book nerds that are sitting.
But that's another point. It's
I do construction for crying out loud.
He does construction, but we're gonna bring that up. I was like, well, there's Star Trek nerds, and then there's Star Wars nerds, there's Trekkies, and then there's us.
Potterheads.
We're like the
Leviathan nerds.
We're like the nerds at the core in our minds, but we don't externally express it.
Fuck, we don't care about Star Wars. We're talking about Leviathan. That's what's going on. And so we got kind of really super nerdy about it, and we're like, because the thing is, the show is so heavy on what goes on in the actual human soul. It's not just a bunch of action shit. It's like the idea of being immortal, the idea of what does it mean to be an immortal? What does it mean to be, and to not choose that life that's not, it's amazing. It's like all these things that just make us as human beings really question what we're here for. And that's why we became so obsessed with it, because yeah, you can be, we're in space. Who gives a shit about space? That's dumb. Who cares? That's what Elon Musk does. Who gives a shit?
Let him have Mars.
Whatever. Who gives a shit about that? What cares more about is what does it mean to be a human? What does that mean to be a human? And I think that's what your show does. Is it makes you question what does it mean to be human, and that's why we became such fans of it, and we bonded over it so much because we were in such our religious life was what does this mean to be human? And then we're mixing that in with your show, and it's it doesn't matter. I'm being
no, that's where we got to end it. On that note, I was please stick the landing, because that was beautiful, man.
I
don't want to say anything else. Let's do a good ending.
What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to actually be because I actually have some philosophical thoughts about this, is that to be human is to remember that we actually are immortal. That's what being human is. We've come here by choice to remember that we actually are immortal. And when we finally figure that out, then we can have fun.
I like that.
That's what we can do. And that's what the Leviathan Chronicles does, is it makes you realize it's the immortals know they're immortal, but they have this sense of it's hard to explain, because they're immortal, but they also know that they can die. But at the same time, it's like the real story is
Well,
they have to understand that we all are immortal. We're all immortal, and only the people in Leviathan finally realize that they are. Just like Evangeline knows her freaking role. Like, yeah, I'm an immortal, and then we all remember it. You know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to overthink this.
No, I think you're on the right path because we're closing down, but the idea that as you have immortality, that you would think life becomes cheaper because you have more abundance of it.
Right.
But actually the opposite happens, where you try to cling on to it even tighter, maybe tighter than you should, because you're so afraid of losing this thing that becomes all that you know.
Because if you are mortal, you're like, we're all gonna die anyway. But if you have given mortality, you're like, I have to hold on to this shit.
It is, and how often have we all seen stories of people that have either become incredibly famous or incredibly rich, and then become incredibly unhappy, or become self-destructive, or become, have some psychosis because of that. And
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I think the way to sum it up, what both of you are kind of saying, the way I would sum it up is, if you can't figure out what we're doing, what's so important about today, then what are you going to do with immortality anyways? That's how I would see it.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do tomorrow? You can't figure out mortality today.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, thank you, Christof. Thank you. It's been fantastic.
It has been so great, guys.
Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and thank you, everybody, for listening.
It's going to be really hard to top it.
It is. And which is fine, which is why we have podcasts, because people can just be like, we'll just tell everybody not to ever listen to this show and come back when we're out of it. They're out of it.
Joe Rogan be like, hey, we want to be on your show. And I'm like, piss off. We have freaking Christof Laputka. Don't care.
All right. Well, anyways, thanks everybody for listening. And
thank you. Yeah.
We are signing out. So,
and by the way, Christof Laputka is on our show.
And out.
Awesome, guys.
You have been listening to the Leviathan Chronicles by Christof Laputka. For more episodes and information, log on to www.leviathanchronicles.com.